The magic of healers in Final Fantasy XIV allows both characters and players to survive in ways that are both surprising and rather sudden. What would be a deep wound to some becomes little more than a scratch later on. But healing magic isn't all-powerful. It can't replace missing limbs or repair internal organs that have been too thoroughly damaged. Just like how healing magic can't fix a skill issue where you're made to raise the same guy for the 7th time during a raid. Oh yes, the amount of memes and misconceptions surrounding the healing arts in this MMO are beyond counting. Whether it's because someone simply doesn't pay attention to the lore, or simply thinks themselves a god as they choose who is worthy of healing, the recovery arts in this game have no shortage of material and stories to play with. Today we're going to reveal what the lore behind your favorite job in Final Fantasy XIV says about your Warrior of Light, whether you knew it or not. We'll begin with the most iconic healer of them all, the Ancient White Mage. So come on, be honest. If you're a White Mage, then you've screamed internally whenever the tank is dead, yet Benediction is on cooldown anyways. It happens. I know it has. And if you're saying it's never happened, then you're either lying or you're not a White Mage main. But Benediction and its weird proccing aside, this job has seen plenty of ups and downs. They've gone from losing the elements of earth, water, and wind to gaining a sick satisfaction in feeding the pain of their allies to a lily. But how true are these changes and the drama attached to the lore of the job itself? Well, in all honesty, people underestimate the raw power of a White Mage. White magic was developed to be the perfect counter to black magic in the 5th Astral Era. Where the black would rage and destroy, the white would mend and protect. Not only that, those White Mages were well known for creating golems to act as sentries and bodyguards. A White Mage's ability to draw upon the aether of the land without effort made their spells incredibly powerful when compared to the common caster. And this is more or less reflected within the gameplay. White Mages are able to top off entire parties worth of players in seconds because it's not just their own aether they're using. Lingering energy within the air and ground are moved to assist, allowing many people to recover from regular injuries in mere moments. Some players think that the elementals of the 12's Wood are stingy for hoarding the White Mage Soulstones, but if they had seen what the elementals saw, how this spell school helped to bring the world to its knees through centuries of war, they would likely hesitate to share this power with just anyone. And yet, if you main a White Mage, this is what makes your Warrior of Light special. Not only did the Soulstone of a respected Pajal resonate with you, but the elementals themselves conceded that it would be safe in your hands. To not be a Pajal, yet carry the knowledge of the White Mages, should be seen as a tremendous honor, because it's by your actions that the elementals will determine whether it's safe to bestow greater arcane secrets from the 5th Era. Next we have the Scholars of Nim. I'd say good day to the Scholar mains listening in, but I'm a little taken aback by their gluttony. It wasn't enough to just eat your fairy, was it? You had to go and start eating carbuncles as well. As much as I'd love to start making vor jokes, let's be honest, we've all been devoured by Cerberus at some point. So by now, we're used to Final Fantasy XIV and its strange dietary habits, aren't we? Though if I'm being frank, I think the funniest change the scholars had received so far is that they lost leeches for Esuna. And yet, leeches is still in Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 1. So honestly, scholars, we don't have to call it Esuna, we can still call it leeches. We can make a macro and just put the name leeches and no one will notice. Though if you've been paying attention, you'll realize that none of what I've talked about so far has anything to do with tactics. And that's the problem with scholars in Final Fantasy XIV. Their lore is much more impressive than the gameplay will ever allow. The Scholars of Nim came into existence as an attempt to shield themselves from the war and conflict of the 5th Age. Nemean casters weren't as strong as the black and white mages of the time, so instead of raw power, they used superior tactics. The scholars were so good at deflecting and avoiding all-out war that it took using voidsent and depraved tricks just to hurt them. So know this, my friends, if you're in a raid team and your raid leader or the person teaching mechanics is a scholar main, that person is amongst the most lore-accurate scholars playing this MMO. Because for the Warrior of Light to be a scholar means that they're more than just a healer. It means knowing your allies as well as your enemies, to guide people through battle and protect them from harmful blows, to use every drop of ether you have wisely and predict the flow of combat in a way that negates the worst of an outcome. If the MSQ lore was accurate, your Warrior of Light would be at the war table with the NPCs, helping to determine troop movements and resource distribution. Many people who play Scholar aren't very tactical, but to those who are, take heart in the knowledge that Nim itself would be proud. Following up, we have the Mystic Astrologians. This job is fascinating because there are generations of annoyed Astrologians. You've got the early generation of Astro players that are annoyed that all their cards do the same thing now. The mid-generation of Astros who are annoyed that their shield sect is gone. Then you'll probably have another group of Astros that are mad if Sinistry is removed. Who am I kidding? No one would miss Sinistry. They probably don't even have it on their hotbar. Though, with all that being said, you'd probably be interested in learning that with all of these changes over the years, Astrologians have actually become less lore accurate with every update. Allow me to explain. Astro is a weird job in the sense that it combines two different things into one discipline. On one hand, you have the divination cards for fate reading, and on the other side, you've got celestial magic that generally draws upon the cosmic aether that gently brushes against our world from the cosmos. Technically, these things can be independent of one another, especially celestial magic. So by combining these two, it made sense that Astrologian had a tremendous degree of flexibility and versatility. The cards performing different effects was your Warrior of Light pulling at different strings of fate. And your shields were defensive in the same way that a planet protects itself from things like solar radiation and asteroids. So with every update, Astrologian has stepped further and further away from its true potential, as far as the lore is concerned at least. But if I'm being honest with myself, people really don't care about the lore so long as the big numbers go brr. Though it is a shame, because if your Warrior of Light has chosen to main Astro, it means that, canonically, you've picked one of the most unique jobs in Final Fantasy XIV. Even back in the homeland of Old Sharlayan, you'll only see a couple Astrologians walking around, as to truly master this craft is to learn more than one arcane discipline and master them. So, despite the lore-breaking changes that this job is constantly receiving, be proud in the fact that Astrologians were, and technically still are, capable of so much more than people think. Lastly, we have the Clever Sage. This healer is technically the new boy on the block and hasn't had the same breadth of changes and homogenization that the other healers have. But don't worry, Sage mains, it'll probably happen regardless eventually. Though in the meantime, the amount of gun healer means have certainly been entertaining either way. Not only that, it's kind of funny how Sage is already a job in Final Fantasy, but 14's version is 100% not how Sages work in other Final Fantasy games. So, while we've not been given tons of information to do a deep dive into the lore and history of Sages, we do have enough data to get an idea as to why your Warrior of Light would pick this profession above others. What makes Sage different from other jobs is that their knowledge on healing isn't limited to magic. A Sage is expected to have a fundamental understanding of physiology and biomechanics. Even without magic, a sage is likely able to diagnose common ailments and know how to treat them. Combined with their magic, things like first aid become child's play, as their spells are commanded to mend specific parts of the body with unique precision. And that is the core of a sage's power, their accuracy. A white mage isn't worried about being precise with their spells because their magic blankets people and entire areas in mending ether. Sages, on the other hand, are intricate with their spellcraft, with each incantation serving a specific purpose. Magic is abstract, but biology is factual. Science is what brings magic to heal when playing a sage. As such, if your Warrior of Light has chosen Sage to be their main, then they're seeking more than just the magic schools. Your Warrior of Light has gained an interest in medicine and long-term treatments that magic alone cannot solve. People are just as likely to see you on the battlefield protecting everyone as they are to see you in a lab, working alongside alchemists to bring a new treatment to the world. But no, this does not mean you can suddenly start calling yourself Dr. Warrior of Light. Your character has not taken the medical board exam, and do not lie, I know you haven't had time to do it with all the depressed birds you've been having to kill over the past couple of years. So instead, be proud that your Warrior of Light understands medicine almost as well as they do magic. And that, my friends, will cover all the current healers in Final Fantasy XIV. Who knows if we'll ever end up getting any more healers? And if we do, how much different will our current healers be by then? Either way, if you've chosen to main healer in Final Fantasy XIV, you've picked up one of the least played roles, and should be proud of your position. So long as you aren't lording health points over people's heads like some kind of tyrant. You know who you are. But remember, my friends, be patient with your DPS. Keep your tank alive, and as always, stay safe, my friends. Thank you all for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe and share this with your fellow adventurers? With your help, I'll try to reach out even further and bring even greater stories to you. Although, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my biggest contributors. A grand thank you to Anthony Ehrlich, Potato, Sage Mouse, Sinalv Bagel, Sizani, and Tyradox, with an additional nod to the scholarships on screen. Links to things like my Twitter and that of my channel artist Caddy can be found in the description. Thank you all for your viewership as well as your support, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Class dismissed.